Hi, health students. Mr. Pastel here. Today we're going to talk about vehicle safety because it's one of the top ways that students your age get hurt, and we want to prevent that. So we're going to be talking about the top vehicles that you use to get around New York City, which are cars, including regular cars, ride shares, taxis, subways, of course, buses. Some of you already take the bus, bikes, other things you can roll around on like scooters, hoverboards, and of course walking. So how do you stay safe doing all of these things? Well, before we talk about that, I want to talk about getting around now that we have COVID, the COVID pandemic all around us. New York City is really the epicenter of the world now for coronavirus. So just some new tips that I maybe haven't mentioned before. They are recommending more and more that you might want to consider wearing a mask if you're going to go out and get groceries. As long as you're not taking away a mask from a healthcare worker that a healthcare worker might try to buy, it will help you and your family stay safer if you have a mask. And there are all kinds of masks. Looks like she's wearing an N95. Same thing with gloves. So if you go out, wearing gloves helps you not touch your face as much. It might help you be more aware of some of the objects that you touch when you go out. Keep 6 or more feet between you and anybody else that's not in your own family that you're not already living with. Right before you leave, wash your hands. When you come back, throw out the gloves or put the gloves in the place where you're not going to touch them for another couple days, and then wash your hands again for 20 seconds. When you're out, let's say at the grocery store, only touch what's necessary. Don't grab like all the fruits and say, I'm not going to take this one, put it back. I'm not going to take this one, put it back. Only touch what you're going to take. Because COVID can stay on some surfaces. So just be very aware of the doorknobs that you touch and the food you bring back to your apartment or wherever you live. Something that I do is if I buy something, then some people wash their stuff, but that's kind of overkill, in my opinion. But you can wash some stuff like fruits when you get it home. But what I do is I just kind of leave things for a couple of days before I use them, because the virus can't survive that long on some surfaces. But that's just my opinion. So I'm not the official Center for Disease Control or anything like that. Let's get back to health. Okay. The first form of transportation that we're going to consider is riding around in a car. So not a lot of us in New York own cars. I used to, but it's hard to park them sometimes. No matter what car you're in, always wear your seatbelt, even if you're in a ride share. That's one of the easiest things you can do to save your own life, or to prevent being paralyzed for the rest of your life, to be honest. So I know you can't drive yet, but there are distracted drivers. If you are in a car with a distracted driver, that's a problem. If they're texting at the same time that they're driving, that is illegal. Don't get in a car with a reckless driver. I remember when I was in high school, I was a pretty safe driver, but one of my friends in particular was speeding all the time. Honestly, I remember sometimes when I could have been seriously injured in his driving if he made one mistake. So just demand to get out of their car, really. Don't ride with people like that. And don't distract the driver yourself. Their job is to get where you're going and to keep you safe. For ride shares like Uber, Lyft, and others, I know a few of you use them. I'm not sure if they have like Uber Kids. I'm not sure if that's a thing that exists. Just be careful and follow your parents or guardians with this one. If they let you, that's up to them. But you don't always know the person that's driving you around, or if you're doing Uber Pool, a person that's with you. So follow your parents and guardians for that one. Bikes. I have a bike. I'll show you guys. As you can see, I have my helmet here, which keeps me safe. Kind of the equivalent of the seat belt, and it's like the number one thing you can do to prevent yourself from getting brain damage if you get into an accident. I have reflectors on the bike, on the front and the back. I can also attach on my head this reflecting light. I have a speaker. Maybe that helps people know if I'm around them. So I try to stay safe on my bike by using bike lanes whenever they're around, or try to stick to paths or routes that only have bike lanes. Actually, if the neighborhood is quiet enough, then sometimes if there's nobody on the sidewalk, I will go on the sidewalk, even though I'm not sure, it might be technically against the law to go on the sidewalk. Definitely don't go on the sidewalk if there's a bunch of people, like if you're in Manhattan. But if the sidewalk's completely clear, that is safer than going on the road. For you guys, I do not recommend going on a road without a bicycle lane, because it's pretty hard to be defensive against cars. Like some people open their doors suddenly. There are cars. There's some bad drivers out there. There might be distracted drivers out there. So for you guys, I do not currently recommend that you ride a bicycle on a road without a bicycle lane. But again, I'm not your parents. All these rules also pertain to skateboards, scooters, hoverboards. I've seen some kids who can't control their scooters suddenly go out into the road and they can't stop themselves. So whatever you're riding around in, just have control in it. And this is what we call a ghost bike. So you have probably seen a ghost bike around. I know there's one on Borden, there's one on Vernon. This is where somebody who was riding around on a bike got killed, sadly. So I think this is actually a cool little awareness memorial idea that this organization called Ghost Bikes puts together. And it's also a sign to be extra careful in that space. Subways and buses. So some of you use subways and buses to get to school. The first thing is, before you get on the subway, there's that yellow safety line. You see that this guy in this picture is breaking the rule of the yellow line. That's dangerous. You actually have people, I think the subway operators call them ostriches, because they stick their necks out and then they pull their head back at the last second once the subway cars come. They're trying to see, is there actually a car coming? And actually you could be like, if you don't know the station well, you could be looking the wrong way, and then the subway car can come from the other direction. So that's super dangerous. Do not cross the yellow line, because there is a gap between the subway car and the yellow line as well. In England, they say mind the gap. Once you're in the subway car, grab onto a pole or something above you. And you guys are New Yorkers, so you know that there are sometimes mentally ill people. I know we just studied emotional and mental health last quarter. There are mentally ill people on the subway. That's just a fact. And sometimes they might say something to you. Usually it's best not to engage in conversation with a stranger, especially a mentally ill stranger. Even eye contact might be a no-no. And of course we know, this is a bigger problem in some other countries, but it's still a problem in New York. Sexual harassment on subways. So it happens. Be on the lookout for it. Just be aware. Lastly, oh, and all this or most of this also pertains to buses, especially these last three. Lastly, walking, the most common form of transportation. New York City used to be a lot more dangerous a few decades ago. Your parents might be able to tell you about that. It has cleaned up a lot, but how can you stay safe when you're just walking around? Use crosswalks when they're there. Wait for the walk signal. Something that happens in Times Square a lot is people only walk when other people around them are walking, and they don't even actually look at the signal. So if there's somebody who just takes a step out, then everybody else is like, oh, it must be okay for me to take a step out. But don't be like a sheep in a herd like that. You can wait for the signal. Still look both ways. You never know if like a bike is coming from the opposite direction on a one-way. This third one is a big one. So if you are crossing the street, let's say you're trying to jaywalk even though you shouldn't, and you pop out from between two cars, then really anyone driving down that street cannot see you. They might be expecting somebody at a crosswalk, but they wouldn't be expecting somebody popping out from between two cars. So please don't emerge from between two cars out into the road. And wherever you're walking, trust your gut instincts when it comes to danger. So you have hardwired into your brain actually millions of years of evolution, which helps you detect danger. So if you have a bad feeling in your stomach, if you just have a bad feeling about an area, get out of there, because that might be some subconscious thing that's trying to help you escape danger before the danger comes. So always trust your instincts. And you guys know the basics. Don't go anywhere with strangers, all that. But trust your instincts. Always stay on the safe side when it comes to danger by listening to your gut feeling. Especially when it's a bad gut feeling. And that's it for now today, guys. Please stay safe out there.